This is America's Healthcare Advocate, your guide to protecting your personal health, bringing you simplified answers to the complex questions surrounding healthcare. And now, America's Healthcare Advocate, Carrie Hall.
Hello, America. Welcome to America's Healthcare Advocate Show, broadcasting coast to coast from Alaska to Florida, all the way to Hawaii. Our producer today, Mr. Darren Wilhite. I'm your host, Carrie Hall. This is your show, America. Thank you for joining us and making us one of the most listened to talk shows in the United States. We have two brand new affiliates we want to welcome on board. KWKN 95.3 FM, The Cowboy in Waukene, Kansas, and KONA 610 AM in Pasco, Washington. I want to thank Rob Francis up there for getting us on. Pasco happens to be the home where my daughter lives with her family now, so I'm very happy to be on up there and be part of the family at KONA 610 AM and KWKN 95.3 FM. We want to welcome them on board and all of their audiences. We welcome to have you as part of the America's Healthcare Advocate family. And I want to say thank you to this audience for the following we are getting and the growth we're experiencing. So on YouTube, in the last 6 months of this year, once we really ramped it up and started paying attention to it, we have 92,600 minutes of YouTube being viewed. That's pretty amazing. In addition to that, for the last 36 episodes, we have 1,300 minutes, and over the last 28 days, if you measure from December 7th to January 3rd, we had 10,581 views. That's amazing, people. And I all I can say is thank you. We put these podcasts up. We put this stuff on YouTube. We've got, videos up there and other information, but it doesn't mean anything if nobody's paying attention to it. And you are. And I'm going to read you a piece. And this really did surprise me. This is America's Healthcare Advocate. This comes from Spotify. Listener personality. The enthusiast. Your listeners are super fans. When their favorite podcast releases in new episodes, they are among the first to know, going above and beyond to show their support for the show. Like I said, all I can say is thank you. I greatly appreciate all of you out there and the fact that you take the time to listen to these shows, go up on podcasts, go up on YouTube. We've got videos up there as well. And again, I want to thank you very much for doing all of that. All right, so there's a lot going on right now, and that's not in the news about COVID. And today's show is going to be about the XBB.1.5 COVID variant. That's not a rocket or a test plane that the Air Force is doing. That's the brand new COVID variant. And I was kind of flopping around, who am I going to get to come on and talk about this that has great experience with it? And I got on the phone and I called Dale and Janice from Triology, and welcome here, Janice King and Dale Weintraub.
Thanks, Carrie. Thank you, Carrie.
Yeah, they've done about 20 of these, so I'm really happy to have them on. And I wanted them to come on because if there are two people that understand COVID, and I mean really understand it, it's Dale and Janice. And they understand how to communicate this to our audience. And so I invited them to come back on today, and they were kind enough to do it. But I'm going to give you a little background on this. This comes out of the Wall Street Journal. It was January 9th. The new offset of COVID Omicron variant is taking over in parts of the U.S., especially in the Northeast, amid signs of rising infection numbers and the winter holidays. Virus experts and doctors say a combination of holiday gatherings and the arrival of XBB.1.5 subvariant is causing more COVID infections, as reflected in the rising hospitalization numbers in the recent climb in wastewater virus levels. Nationally, XBB.1.5 subvariant represented an estimated 27.5% of all the cases as of the end of January 7th. So this thing is constantly growing, and that's the issue here. XB.1.5 has already soared to roughly 3/4 of the new cases in New England and New York. So this is really hitting northeastern part of the United States really hard, and they're having a real problem with it. But it is something we are all exposed to. And the problem with this, and Dale and Janice will talk about this, this is much more, it's highly infectious. This thing can be transmitted much better than any of the previous viruses that we've seen, the previous COVIDs, and that's one of the reasons why it's such a problem. Our concern is how it is transmissible, says Marie Van Kosovo, an infectious disease epidemiologist and technological lead, takes the technological lead, Lord have mercy, you thought I did radio, of the COVID-19 response to the World Health Organization. She's saying that this is so much more easily transmitted, and that's why they're concerned that this thing is really going to sweep across the country and just blow up. So XBB was first detected in New York late October, according to Ann Hand, postdoctoral associate at Yale Public Health, and it is a descendant of the Omicron subvariant XBB, which in itself is a combination of two different Omicron subversions. So that's kind of the background. You're not surprised by this, Janice?
Oh, not at all. Not
Okay.
at all. I mean, viruses have been around for millions of years, and they're going to continue to be around much longer than we will probably as a species.
Yeah, the way COVID's going, that may well be the case, okay?
Exactly. So, the variants are going to continue to come. We're not going to have vaccines fast enough to take care of them.
Which, by the way, this one is not necessarily. If you've been vaccinated, you're not free. You're not free and clear of not getting this. Am I correct?
You are correct.
Okay.
So, even if you've dodged the COVID to this point, you've done your vaccinations and your boosters, there's no guarantee that you're not going to get this one.
Yeah.
We've also researched that the XBB 1.5, it has the ability to evade natural immunity. So if you've had it, you build up a natural immunity and everybody thinks I'm okay. Or the vaccines, because they've pointed out that the XBB 1.5 has a much stronger affinity to an ACE2 key receptor for the virus, which allows it to bind more easily and boost its transmissibility.
Okay, so that's really interesting because I've been doing a lot of reading on this as well. Is one of the things that I thought was interesting was, and I can't remember the doctor that did this piece that I read, was put this in simple terms so everybody gets it. What Dale just said, what it means is this thing sticks to you, the protein sticks to you, and it's very hard to get rid of. Is that basically, am I correct in that?
Yes, and I think the other thing we have to realize is we go into the winter months and nobody wants to wear a mask.
Oh. I was just in Target before I came over here, right? They didn't see, there wasn't a soul in there in a mask. I'm not behind the check stands and not shopping. I did have my little Triology bottle in my pocket, and I had my other one out in the car. So, I did have that. But no, nobody, you're right. Nobody's wearing a mask. Nobody.
And Dale and I went to our hospital here in the Kansas City area to do blood work the other day, and they had taken down all the protective plastic barriers, every one of them.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's like I felt like I was so exposed,
Here's the thing that I don't get you to. I have not seen this on Fox Business, CNN, MSNBC, NBC, CBS, ABC. I have not seen one lead story about this thing going across the country, and nobody, is talking about this, including the CDC in Atlanta. They've put out a couple of pieces on it, but nobody's talking about it.
No, we don't have the daily reports, the weekly reports like we used to. COVID fatigue has really set in and got its teeth into all of us. And it's to our downfall because this winter, since we're in the middle of the triple pandemic right now with RSV, flu, and COVID's variants, we're just setting ourselves up for a big fall throughout the entire winter season.
And I'm going to tell you something that's interesting. So, a lot of you folks that listen to the show know that, Joyce Thompson does a lot of work with me, and she handles a lot of radio stuff. She also works over at RPS Benefits by Design, and I frequently give her name out if you're looking for Medicare coverage. Her mother got really ill right before the holidays. They tried to get her. They went to every hospital in the city. They finally got her in at University Care, which is Truman Hospital here in Kansas City. That was the last hospital they were able to get her in. And when I talked to Dr. Tracy Stevens and Dr. Boyd over at St. Luke's, they told me they are full up and they're in the hospital like 6 days a week now, just managing cases because they've got so many people coming in with this stuff.
Well, you combine that with the flu and then RSV. Compounding it.
And that's where we're at. When we come back from the break, we're going to continue to talk about this. We want you to understand what's going on here. The purpose of this show today is to educate you and inform you because for some reason it's not out there anywhere. By the way, you heard me mention when I was in Target just a few minutes ago, I had my Triology bottles. I got them right here on the counter. The website, triologycare.com, triologycare.com. The phone number, 1-800-306-3041. It's also on Amazon if you want to order it there. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after the break. You're listening to America's Healthcare Advocate, broadcasting here on the HI Radio Network, coast to coast, across the USA. Don't go anywhere.
Me, darling, am I right?
welcome back. You're listening to America's Healthcare Advocate Show, broadcasting coast to coast across the USA here on the HIE Radio Network. You can find out more about us by going to the website, americashealthcareadvocate.com. Also, as you heard me say in the opening, all the shows are posted on, I think, every podcast platform out there right now at the rate we're going. But nonetheless, they are out there at America's Healthcare Advocate and on the YouTube channel, which is getting an amazing number of views as well. My producer, the always perfect Mr. Darren Wilhite. I'm your host, Kerry Hall. In studio with me, Dale Weintraub and Janice King from Triology. And we are talking about this XBB 1.5 COVID variant that's out there. But, you heard me say this as we went out a minute ago. I went around the house the other day. I read these articles and I thought, I went out to my wife's car and I pulled out the Triology and the bottle was almost empty. And I went over to my car and pulled it out and mine was about half full. I got out the big bottle. I went around and filled up all the bottles and I put them back in the car. And there's two of them in each car. My point in telling you that is, I don't go in or out of a public place without this stuff. And I go in with it and I come out with it. I spray my face and my hands with it and my mouth, which is probably the single biggest thing that I think Triology does that none of these other sanitizers do. It allows you to spray your mouth. You heard Dale talk about how highly contagious this XBB1 is. How do you think it gets in your body? It enters through your mouth, all right? So having said that, if you use Triology, 99.9% effective in killing this stuff on contact. It is all natural. It is organic, okay? So that's why you can spray it in your mouth, and it contains no alcohol. It's got camembroid peroxide. I should probably have Janice doing this. Organic almond oil, aloe vera, birchwood, and peppermint oil. It's all natural, all organic. It's a great product, and I'm telling you something, it works. So I strongly suggest you go to the website, triologycare.com, or you can order it on Amazon, or you can order it at Walmart. Am I right or wrong?
Yes.
Am I missing anybody now?
Walmart online.
Online, right.
Amazon online, and our
there
website.
There you go. And,
yep.
Or at the website,
or call
triologycare.com. It's all. By the way, Triology Care's got a 10% discount right now if you want to go on triologycare.com. All right, so let's kind of segue to this. Let's keep going. So now we're talking 19,000 hospitalized.
Yes.
Okay. And I just told the story of Joyce's mother, who they could barely get her in the hospital. Again, I guess the thing that 12% mortality rate, 2,432 deaths per week now, they're saying, in the 2018 flu season, which you just talked about, Dale. And by the way, I got I had the pleasure of picking up the flu. The last trip I went up to Pasco, Washington, my daughter was like, Mom's not going to let you come up here anymore because every time you come up here, you get sick. But the flu, 28,000 people, are getting this stuff, on a monthly basis. So this stuff is really serious. And it's not getting any better, and it's not going to get any better till we get completely out of winter, right?
Right. It's not. And as we said in the previous segment, how the vaccines, we certainly are pro-vaccine, and we recommend everyone get vaccinated, but it has not proved to be effective against XBB 1.5. And then other previous therapies to tackle COVID, like the monoclonal antibody treatments, are also rendering them to be ineffective against this strain and the previous strains. So there's really nothing out there right now that can be completely effective against XBB 1.5.
Yeah.
And
that's a little scary, Janice.
It is scary. And, during the height of the pandemic, everybody put a mask on.
We just talked about it.
Because of the barrier. It was a barrier. And very little flu.
Yeah.
That's
really funny because I remember that, too.
Yeah.
I remember that the flu cases were way, way down, and it was like, oh, that just it happened because everybody's wearing that mask.
There's a barrier.
Yeah.
And when you have a barrier between you and that next person, and that's where you're getting it from, the person you're next to.
Or your grandchild.
Yeah. So, when you were wearing a mask, you had that physical barrier. Now we have to have a barrier from the next person over, our grandchildren, and that's Triology, because it's the only patented product that's been tested by a U.S.-approved lab specifically against the COVID. It's also been tested against the bacteria, the fungi, the other viruses. And it's very, very effective if you use it regularly throughout the day. And you can because it's safe. Swallow it. There's nothing in it that's going to harm you. But boy, it'll sure stop the virus in its track before it gets into the body.
And that go back to that a minute, because you talked about this virus a minute ago, Dale. This new virus that's out there, this SRV. What is it now? The new virus.
XBB 1.5.
No, not the COVID. The other one, the one that's regular flu.
The RSV.
Yeah. So and then there's another one, and the name of this thing escapes me and I'm the one that got it. And I got it when I was in Pasco this last time, and I went in and I got tested. And she said, "Well, you don't have any of these, but you have this." And I said, "I've never heard of this." And it was not one of these. I can't remember the name of the thing right now, but I had to take an antibiotic for this thing, and it lasted. It was brutal. It lasted for like 2 weeks before she said, "You're going to have this for the next 30 days." And I'm like, "You must be kidding me." She was like, "No, you're going to have it." Now, and it was my own fault. I did not take this in the house with the kids, and I should have done it because, I was holding the babies and doing all the things you do, and I know exactly where this came from.
Well, and it's so safe. The children could have been using it.
I know. Yeah, and they should have been using it. Yeah.
So,
yeah. Yeah. So, and I think that's the point I want to make here is that this thing is out there now. And again, it's flying under the radar. Nobody's talking about it. And look, if you're a non-vaxxer, okay, everybody gets to make a choice, right? But if you're a non-vaxxer and you're not doing anything like this, what do you think the likelihood of picking this thing up is at least those, I've had 4 shots now. I think it is 4. Including the flu shot. Okay, so, there are protections there. Some of the people that have had it, have some natural immunity. But if you haven't done any of this.
You're really rolling the dice, Kerry, and you're taking an unnecessary risk. We're basically in a house on fire situation right now. Because as you mentioned earlier, 1% of the COVID infections in December were caused by XBB 1.5. Now they're 41% of all COVID infections. And in the Northeast, as you said, there's 70% of all COVID.
See, I didn't know that. So now
it is growing not only fast, but it's literally exponential.
So now, as it starts moving across the country, okay, you're going to see it. It's going to hit the Midwest, then it's going to hit the West Coast, and we're going to see this. Again, the purpose of the show today is to bring this to your attention. I'm not trying to scare the hell out of people, but I'm trying to make you understand that this is serious. Nobody's talking about it, which is why we're talking about it. And you need to do the things you can do that are going to protect you and give your family some protection so that you minimize the chances of getting this stuff. Because obviously, if you go and you look at any of the data, you go and research any of this stuff clings to you like the other COVIDs don't. And that's one of the problems with this is that that protein locks on. It's very hard to get rid of, and it's going to cause a lot of problems for people. Once again, I'm going to tell you, one of the single smartest things you can do is get Triology spray and start using it. It's triologycare.com. That's the website. The phone number is 1-800-306-3041. Or you can go on Amazon, order it right on Amazon. It's right there, or on Walmart as well if you choose to do that. But it does make a difference. You can't spray it in your mouth. You heard Janice say that they actually had this tested at the lab that was able to test and show that it is at 99.9% effective in killing COVID, all COVID and the viruses. So, all right, when we come back, we're going to get into some of the other issues around these viruses and some of the things that you can expect and some of the things you'd be paying attention to. You're listening to America's Healthcare Advocate, broadcasting here on the HIA Radio Network, coast to coast across the USA. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're listening to America's Healthcare Advocate Show, broadcasting coast to coast across the USA. You can find out more about us by going to the website americashealthcareadvocate.com or healthradio.us. You can send me an email if you've got questions. I'm happy to answer them. If there's a suggestion, something you want me to talk about on the show, let me know. If you need help with something, if you're having trouble with a health issue or an insurance issue or anything like that, please reach out to me on the website. I'll get the email and I'll get back to you. My producer, Darren Wilhite. I'm your host, Kerry Hull. Again, in studio with me, Dale Weintraub and Janice King from Triology. The website for them is triologycare.com. The phone number is 1-800-306-3041. It's also on Amazon and it is at Walmart. So before we go back into this, because I touched on this and I blew it pretty badly, let's just kind of recap for folks what Triology is and a little bit about what it does other than what we're talking about today. Because this is kind of like the guy that invented the sticky notes for 3M. You didn't make this product for COVID or for these other, it's a dental product. But you found out, was, gee whiz, guess what we can do? So let's just kind of talk a little bit about that, and then let's talk about what actually goes into Triology and why it's so helpful for people to have.
Well, it's interesting, Carrie, that you put it that way, because when we were formulating, we were working with universities, and we were working with a Midwest leading university, and we got a phone call from the lead doctor there in the lab, and he says, do you know what you have? And we said, well, if you're asking, we apparently don't know. And so he called us in, and we're in Kansas City, he's up in Indiana, and so we take the trip up there and go in his office, and he says, you're going to change dentistry because there's nothing like this, because we were so effective at killing the bacteria, the fungi, the viruses
In people's mouths.
in their mouth, while we protected the oral cells, the fibroblast cells that go back to repair damage from bacteria, fungi, and viruses, or injury or surgeries. We could do all that without damaging the human cells. Never been done before. Never. Not in burn centers, not in other ways in the body. Our product was the very first one that could inhibit the growth of the bad things while protecting the growth of the human cells that need for repair.
So let's talk about what goes into it, because you guys formulated this yourselves, okay? Talk about what goes into this and the links that you go through. I mean, it's not just organic people. They go to the next level. So let's just talk about that a minute.
Well, let me just talk about aloe vera.
Yeah.
Okay, so our manufacturer said, hey, you're paying way too much for your aloe vera, that they would do for another company. And why don't you do the same aloe vera they do, because it's a fourth of the price. And we said, well, we got to send it down to the lab in Atlanta to make sure it's latex free, because we won't put anything in our product that could lead to an allergy. And latex, when it's used over and over again, does lead to allergies. And so we sent the two products down. They tested it. We were completely latex free.
The other product?
Yeah, extremely high. So, we pay the extra to protect the people that use our products.
It's like the wheatgrass thing.
Same thing. Yeah, same
Right,
thing.
Same thing. Our wheatgrass is actually sourced in a company. It's local. It's just north of Lawrence, Kansas. And they
We
grow
grow a lot of wheat in Kansas.
We
We
grow
can
a
say
lot of
that
wheat
here,
in
people.
Kansas.
That's where this originates, right here in Kansas.
That's
City.
right. It's all organically grown from billions of years ago. All the great nutrients that were left by the receding glaciers. But our wheat is gluten free. And a lot of people say, "Oh gosh, I can't use this stuff. It's got wheat in it." Well, that is not true, because wheat has gluten only comes from the wheat grain itself. Right. Our product is made out of the wheat grass before the plant joints and forms the grain. So when you harvest it before it joints, you get all the potential, all the benefits and nutrients out of the wheatgrass, which are a lot, with none of the negatives. So it is certified gluten-free.
Janice, go through the ingredients. The ones that I stepped all over in the last segment. Go ahead.
Okay. So like Dale said, there's the organic wheatgrass powder. So it's almost like a nano powder. It's very easily absorbed by your body. Carbamide peroxide. Our body creates carbamide peroxide as part of our immune system. So we boost that protection with carbamide peroxide. Organic sweet almond oil. Again, we use only the inner kernel of it, not the skin, because we don't want any allergies. The aloe vera, birchwood, xylitol. And it's very, very important, because you can get xylitol from corn, but we don't want to use that. We want to use the organic hardwood xylitol. In European countries, they use that to prevent tooth decay rather than fluoride. And so it's very healthy for the body. And peppermint oil, it's a great antiseptic. So, between the whole plant of the wheatgrass, the essential oils, the carbamide peroxide, there's a synergistic exchange. And when it's being manufactured, the vat becomes just condensation and ice cold as this energy is being created. So, like I said, it's been tested, it's been proven, no toxins, no.
Yeah, let me just step in here and say, let me tell you what it doesn't have. There's no alcohol, no toxin, no drug, no gluten, no latex, no sulfites, no triclosan, no GMOs, and no fluoride in this product. None.
None. You hear that the commercial goes, "What's in your wallet?" I'm not
That's
promoting
good.
it.
I like that.
But what I'm saying is, look and see what's in your rinse and your toothpaste, and see, do you really want that in your body?
Yeah, and again, Triology is patented synergistic union of antimicrobials and antioxidants. And I'm going to tell you something. This stuff works let's switch back to, just oral health. Again, we went on vacation to Hawaii. I started having a problem with a tooth issue where I have a bridge, and I came back. I didn't have enough, but I had Triology with me. I was using it, and it kept it under control till I came back. I went to the dentist. My dentist, by the way, happens to use Triology products. She gave me a Triology injector. This is with a little brush on the bottom of it, and said, I don't think you're going to have to get a root canal. I don't think it's a nerve thing. Go home, start using this stuff. I did. The problem was solved. And it scared the daylights out of me because I thought they're going to take this whole bridge out, go in there and do a root canal. They didn't. I got whatever that little gizmo is you make with
right.
It's got like a little paintbrush on the end.
It's called the treatment pen.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah. And the stuff works. So it's just important, I think, for people to know all the really good things that this stuff does.
Well, Carrie, if you have siblings, you're always judged harshly by those siblings.
Yeah.
Well, Dale's brother is just a year older. And so, the little brother, how can you do this type thing? But he was going to his periodontist, and the periodontist told him, you're going to have to have gum surgery now. It's advanced that far. And finally, he turns to Dale and he goes, that stuff you've been making? Can I try it? And so
I hope Dale said, yeah, you can go up and order it online and pay for it. I hope you didn't give it to him after all that.
So his brother gets on it, goes back for a scheduled pre-surgery appointment, and the surgeon says, what have you been doing? You're not a candidate for surgery. Just like that, in 4 weeks, he didn't need
Amazing.
surgery.
The stuff works.
He's now one of the loyalist users. I mean, he will never be without the product.
It's interesting. Yeah. I've talked to a lot of people who've used it, a lot of people that have really started to, it's really changed the way they do things. Let's switch back for a little to viruses versus bacteria and talk about how, again, back to using Triology, but how all of this is starting to become a bigger and bigger issue.
Bacteria, when you use bacteria, you get a bacterial infection, then your doctor will put you on an antibiotic. And for many decades, it's been very, very effective. Now we got superbugs because we've overused it.
I just did a whole broadcast with the lady out of California who believe it or not, there's actually a bill in Congress now to fund studies so they can come up with drugs that, because the superbugs are getting so strong, that antibiotics aren't working.
Right.
Her daughter died from this.
We need a sidebar here, Carrie.
Yeah.
And I know we're going to be talking mainly about viruses,
Yeah.
but because we're talking about superbugs, and those are bacterial, antibiotic resistant. Well, the most common one is known by the acronym of MRSA, MRSA, methicillin resistant Staphylococcus aureus.
I'm really glad he said that on radio and not me.
And
Darren's laughing.
we were tested in an independent lab on our effectiveness against MRSA. The CEO of the lab called us, just like the biology instructor did out of our original research said. He said, do you know what you have here? We said, no, we really don't. You have the most inhibition of MRSA we've ever tested of any medicament.
That's amazing.
So not only are we having this tremendous benefit of fighting COVID, a very, very virulent virus, a superbug, bacteria, MRSA, so the most effective they've ever tested.
That's remarkable.
So
I didn't know any of this.
But
before.
here's our theory.
I mean, we've been working together for almost 2.5 years now, and that's a piece of news right there.
A man-made antibiotic is just that. It's man-made.
Correct.
Every season, these plants that grow have to mutate for the next version of the bacteria or the fungi or the virus, because they're alive just like we are, and they have to mutate or they don't survive. And I think that's why our products are so effective.
That's really interesting.
Because we're taking from nature things that have already made the mutations.
That's really interesting.
And so they're always a season ahead of us.
All right, we're coming up on the break. We got to get out now. I'm up against it hard here, and Darren's telling me that. So we're going to be right back after the break. You're listening to America's Healthcare Advocate, broadcasting here on the HIE Radio Network, coast to coast across the USA. Stay tuned. We've got one more after this. Welcome back. You're listening to America's Healthcare Advocate Show, broadcasting coast to coast across the fruited plain here on the HIE Radio Network. More information about us on americashealthcareadvocate.com or healthradio.us. We are on every existing podcast platform, I'm pretty sure at this point. So you want to tell somebody about this show or get somebody to listen to it, tell them to go up on one of the podcast platforms. We're up there. It's under America's Healthcare Advocates. Not hard to find. So you can tell them to listen to the show if they want to learn. You want them to learn more about this. If you've got somebody that's reluctant, to do anything for themselves, and I'm fine, I don't need to do any of this stuff. Well, go listen to the broadcast and see how fine you are. Okay, so that might help them. The idea, again, behind doing these kind of shows, I'm trying to educate and inform. That's all we're trying to do here. I'm also telling you that one of the ways you can help yourself and defend against getting this stuff or knocking it down, okay, and so that it doesn't come in your body, is with Triology. The Triology sprays work, okay? In your mouth, on your hands, on your face. There isn't another product out there you can spray on your face and your hands. And it's all natural, all organic, no alcohol, none of that stuff. And it really does work, aside from the fact that they are great products for oral health care that I use every day. And I can tell you they work really well. The website is triologycare.com, triologycare.com. 10% off if you go up there now. And the phone number, 1-800-306-3041. You can also order it on Amazon, and you can get it at Walmart. So here's a little piece. Again, this one comes out of the Kansas City Star, believe it or not. One troubling indicator for seniors, that's those of us that are chronologically challenged, okay? Hospitalizations for people that get COVID-19 have risen by more than 30% in the last 2 weeks. That comes from the Centers for Disease Control in Atlanta. Dr. Rochelle Walensky said. So again, if you're a seasoned citizen, okay, you are at far. Yeah, we're all. Yeah, see, Darren's not. So he sits over and laughs. But if you're a seasoned citizen, you are at far more risk for this stuff than younger people. So you really need to do everything you can. If you're a non-vaxxer, God bless you, but you better be paying attention to what's going on, and you better have Triology and start doing everything you can to keep from getting this stuff, because this new one, this XBB 1.5, is nasty, and it hangs around for a long time, right, Dale?
Yes, yeah, it really has.
Yeah. So let's go, Janice. Let's talk about some of the other things we're going to chat about while we're on break here.
Well, just quickly on viruses. And if you understand the nature of a virus, you know that if you get a virus, it lives with you the rest of your life. There is nothing like, oh, well, I had the virus, but now it's gone, because it doesn't happen that way. And if you look at cold sores, fever blisters, chicken pox, shingles, anything that's caused by a virus, it will live with you. And when you're tired, you're stressed, you have a cold, it's an opportunity to suppress the immune system, and those viruses then reactivate themselves within your body. So this is going to be anybody who's had it, they've got it for the rest of their life. Anybody who has not had it then always runs the risk of getting it, and then they'll have it for the rest of their life. So,
yeah, this is something, again, I don't think a lot of people are talking about. We talked this on break, okay? This isn't going anywhere.
No, it's not going away.
No.
And the symptoms can be just as bad as when you had it the first time. And you
worse.
Or worse, and you haven't been re-exposed because you're now being reactivated.
Yeah, so it in other words, it can cycle back and come back on you. And again, that's why you need to do anything and everything you can to protect yourself from this.
And the next thing I want to talk about is oral disease. It's a pandemic in its own right, and it's, associated with cardiovascular disease, strokes, rheumatoid arthritis, dementia, Alzheimer's disease, respiratory diseases, infertility. I mean, it goes on and on and on, but it all starts from the mouth. Now there's a new study out that the microbiome of your mouth, the community of bacteria, viruses, and fungi, affect the brain. If the microbiome's out of balance, the brain is out of balance. You want to mention anything about that?
Well,
don't be looking at you're looking at Dale over there.
They have found the direct connection actually, between oral disease and Alzheimer's disease. The same pathogens found in oral disease are being found in the amyloid plaque of Alzheimer's disease patients.
I didn't know that. In fact, I just did in one of the shows that Darren and I did here not so long ago. I was talking about this new medication that's just coming out that of course FDA approves and then CMS says they're not going to pay for it. Gee whiz, there's a surprise. But that the amyloid plaque, this is something that attacks the amyloid plaque. So what is this connection now, Dale?
So now what we know is that our product, what it does against those pathogens in the mouth, we can control it in the oral environment. But if you don't control it in the oral environment, it can through the blood system and pass through the blood-brain barrier and actually get into the brain and attack the brain tissue. And that's how part of the reason why people are suffering these negative impacts of Alzheimer's disease. So it stands to reason if you can control it orally, you've got a lot better chance of protecting yourself from this kind of damage. Also, the same pathogens found in the plaque of cardiovascular disease are the exact same species found in oral disease that we've been proven to be effective against. So our genesis of being a product to fight oral disease has morphed into all these different uses, whether it's protecting the brain, protecting the heart, protecting you against invading viruses and bacteria. Triology and nature has some amazing benefits.
You know, and it is amazing. I guess probably what's almost more amazing is we don't realize how many of those things that we suffer with, whether it's disease or chronic conditions, starts in your mouth.
Right.
I mean, it's remarkable.
Right, and Carrie, 50% of all people by the time they're in their 40s have some form of dental disease, oral disease. By the time we're 70, 65, or 70% of all people that are 65 have dental disease. So oral disease, they don't feel it, they don't know they have it, and yet it's setting them up for all these terrible systemic diseases.
Yeah, and it doesn't get any better; it only gets worse.
And it increases your risk for COVID.
And so there you have it. That's kind of the whole picture. Like I said, the reason we did the show today, thank you, Dale, thank you, Janice, for coming in here, was to XBB 1.5. That's what we spent most of the time talking about. Look. If you've been vaccinated, that doesn't mean you're not going to get it. You're still exposed to it. You probably have a smaller chance. If you're a non-vaxxer out there, you're rolling the dice, okay? And what I'm saying to you is, all of you out there, you can help protect yourself. Like Janice said in the beginning of the show, nobody, when you walk, I don't care, walk into Target, walk into Walmart, walk into a restaurant, walk into a hospital now, you're not being required to wear a mask. So this stuff is raging across the Northeast. It's starting to move across the country. The way to keep yourself protected, one of the best ways, is with Triology. The website's triologycare.com, triologycare.com. The phone number, 1-800-306-3041. You can order it on Amazon if you choose to do that, or on Walmart.com. And now I leave you with this thought from Dr. Albert Einstein. The one who follows the crowd will usually get no further than the crowd. The one who walks alone is likely to find himself in places no one has ever been. Remember, friends, it's a funny thing about life. If you refuse to accept anything but the very best, you most often get it. Thank you for listening to America's Healthcare Advocate Show. Goodbye, America.